All right, we're recording. Please stand.
Your backpack is in the way.
Your backpack is right there.
That's right. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Sancta Michael Arcangelo, defenda nos in predium, contra nequitiam et insidias diaboli, est presidium. Impere illi Deus, supplices te pregam, tuque princeps militiae celestis, Satanam, adiosque spiritus malignos, qui ad perditionem animarum pervegantur in mundo, divina virtute in infernum detruum. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Have a seat. Quick opinion poll before we start. Temperature in here, is it okay, warm, too cold?
It's good. It's a little warm. No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Take off your blazer.
What I think I'm going to do.
It's more than I don't have a blazer.
Well, I think it's cold and I have
We could go outside.
I'm burning up.
I'm just going to circulate the air a little bit.
Yeah.
The air conditioner actually makes it pretty frigid in here at this time of day. So if it gets too bad, let me know. I'll switch. But otherwise, take out your in-class 62. And I'm going to come around and check.
After we check the room.
Yeah, I know.
See what you have.
10 minutes.
It's not Christmas.
It's actually Pacific Central.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure you're ready.
When we're done with this
It's
one
not in
holiday.
October. Like it wasn't even September they're selling Halloween stuff. It's not even October, they're doing Christmas stuff.
And then they're gonna be doing St. Patrick's stuff right after, or Valentine's Day stuff right after Christmas.
Valentine's.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't checking the last page.
And then they're gonna do.
Easter
I was being silly. Okay, got it.
He's not.
Yeah, idea good.
You're correct. So close. That's out of 3. Oh, that's right.
Wait, it's out of three?
Oh, you
yeah,
know
I
this.
did
Let me grab that
extra
right.
credit. I just got it wrong. Did I get it wrong?
You got it in half right.
Oh, I got one. Oh, one was.
Here you go.
Oh, why doesn't someone let me watch that?
It's no problem.
Whoa.
Some scenes.
I just like one movie we were talking about. No, I've like seen clips of the movie. So I've practically seen the whole movie.
Yeah, how that works.
Oh yeah, I've seen that scene.
Gianna, have you seen that? Oh yeah, I've seen that scene. And then there's a kid
I gotta tell you, let me watch that movie. Oh yeah, I've seen that, seen that.
Yeah.
Don't count, please.
My fingers are getting shaky. That is insane.
I was gonna say that, but I decided not.
My fingers are
All right. Ahem. Face fronts. And take your worksheets out. Have a red writing utensil at the ready. Let's see what we got. The answers are, we're doing 21 through 30 and the extra credit. Number 21 should have 2 parentheses. And they can be in either order. X plus 8, X plus 3. If you've got X plus 3, X plus 8, that's fine. Number 22, 3x plus 5 in parentheses, and parentheses x plus 3. And the other order around is fine. Number 23, parentheses x plus 5, parentheses x squared plus 2. 24, parentheses x plus 2, parentheses 3x squared plus 1. Number 25 is prime. 26, two parentheses, x squared plus 3, x squared plus 4. Number 27 is prime. 28, two parentheses, y squared plus 5, and x squared plus y. Number 29, two parentheses, z plus 2, and xy plus 5a. Number 30 is prime, and repeats on those. Yeah.
22.
22 was two parentheses, 3x plus 5, and x plus 3. Any other repeats? Yeah. Yeah, 21 is x plus 8, x plus 3, and 27 is prime. Any other repeats? Extra credit. There are two parentheses. The first one has 3 terms, the second one has 2 terms. The first parentheses, x squared plus 3x plus 4, and then snug up against times parentheses 4x cubed plus 5. Any repeats anywhere?
Wait,
Right,
that's
question.
what I have. Wait,
Do you have parentheses around all of them? You have 2 sets of parentheses. That's what was missing. That actually changes the answer.
what?
Any other repeats?
Yeah. Well, I did it in red pen because I was correcting.
That was why.
No.
Does anybody else not have an N class 62? Now's a good time to ask. I
Did
think
you do
you're
doors
wrong,
in
right?
pen? Never mind.
All right. Questions? Any others you want to see dissected, Rosie? Go. 24.
I got that one wrong. I mean,
Thanks for sharing.
Hang on. That's why we're going over it. 24, yes. Hang on a second. That one was a tricky one, I'll admit. Trust, quick question. Yeah, by all means.
we have literature and we have pizza.
Extraneous conversation can wait. 24, 3x cubed plus 6x squared. Plus x plus 2. And this is number 24. Now the first thing we can try, it has 4 terms. So I want to try factor by group F. Oh, I should check first. Is there an overall GCF? No. Always check first. Because if there is, it'll save your problem. I'm going to try grouping. Group the first pair, group the second pair. There is a plus in between. I'll show you what happens to that in a minute. Can you tell me what the little mini GCF is for the first pair? What's the biggest thing that goes into these 2 terms? Go.
3.
Definitely. And something else.
2.
2 what's?
X.
Yeah, so how do you put that? X
3x squared.
squared. So everybody right with that? The GCF of this first pair is 3x squared. What will be left behind if you did that? John?
Oh, me?
Yeah. What's left over?
X
Uh-huh.
plus
Plus,
2x.
the x's are gone.
Plus 2 to the first. Just that's all.
Exactly. All the x's are gone. Both x's are yanked. So it's just plain old x plus 2. Everybody still okay? What about here? What's the GCF? There isn't one except for what? 1. Normally we don't bother with 1. This is one of the rare occasions where you do. I'm going to pull out a 1. I'm not wild about the 1. The 1 is like, oh, big deal. Well, what's left behind? I am interested in that. Can anybody tell me why? Why is that interesting to me, Mary?
Because at the end you use 3x squared plus 4.
Correct, and the parentheses. they match. In other words, I'm not too wild about the 1, but I am wild about the fact that the parentheses now match. That's a GCF. Pull it out in front. So x plus 2, and then the leftovers are 3x squared with a plus 1 at the end. And that's it. Yeah.
It would, yeah, never mind.
Okay. Yeah, if you didn't pull anything out at all, and you just said 3x squared here, that's getting on the right track, but it's not correct. Yeah.
Kind of filled in line.
Yeah, pretty much. Does this kind of make sense? Again, this is rare, but if you can't pull anything out, try pulling out a 1. Maybe it'll work. If you don't get equal parentheses, then it fails and it's prime, but that's not your fault. Go.
Yeah, I just didn't understand like how to do the one.
Okay, you pull it out just like any number. It's dull because it doesn't do anything to it. It just keeps it the same. But this time that actually worked to our favor because the parentheses actually were good for us. That be okay with that? Any other questions? Next.
22.
22. Yeah, 3x squared plus 5x. Plus something. 9x plus 15. Did anybody try combining the middle terms into 14x? Okay, good. I would not want you to. Not that it's legal, but it'll actually ruin your problem. Because I want 4 terms. Actually, Eric, help me out. What's the GCF of just this little mini part? Actually, there's 1. No numbers, you're right. What do you think? They have something in common. A single x. Can we see that? This is awkward because there's no numbers they have in common except 1. But they do have an x in common. What's left if you yank an x out of each one?
3x.
Plus.
5.
Good. Is that still okay? Let me see. Maria, help me out here. What's the GCF? What's the biggest number that goes into both of these? Dividing wise. 3. What we're doing is, you remember distributing? It's kind of like if you have 2 parentheses 3x plus 4. And distributing means you multiply in. Remember that from years past? It's kind of like 6x plus 8. What we're doing is undistributing. We're pulling it back out. So if you have 6x plus 8, and you're saying, do these have a number in common? Yeah, they seem to have a 2 in common. If you pull it back out, what would have to be in here? Just relax. In order for this to work. What was this before they multiplied it by 2? Yeah, 3x plus what? Exactly. You just undid the problem. That's kind of what we're doing here. Can you try this here? It looks like 3 works, but give me the parentheses. What's the leftovers? What would have been here? What was it before they multiplied by 3? Yep, 3x plus what? What was this before they multiplied by 3? 5. Exactly. Question? Yeah, straight up. Do you see what it is? What do you notice? Andy?
That the parentheses are the same.
Yeah, is that good or bad?
That's good.
That's good. What can we do with them?
You yank them out.
Yeah, yank them out in front. It's a GCF. So 3x plus 5 in front, you undistribute it, and then what's the leftovers? Go for it.
X plus 3.
Got it. That's right. Does that make sense? Next. Any others you want to see dissected? Now's a good time to ask. Don't sit and suffer. Honestly. Nobody has any other questions whatsoever. Go, thank you.
30.
Third?
Number 30.
Oh, okay, good, that one. X cubed plus 2x squared, I'll just do it down here. X cubed plus 2x squared plus something, plus 4x plus 2. It looks like a good candidate for grouping. Go. Question.
I have a question. So how do you pronounce the word? I know it's like Padre Pio. How do
Okay.
you pronounce that?
It wasn't a math question, but normally I wait till this. go ahead. Grade Alg1. Math. So we've got 4 terms. What method probably works here? What would we try just because there's 4 terms? Factor by. There's 2 methods we have so far. There's GCF and grouping. You have 4 terms. GCF, well actually let's check GCF, that's a good idea. Is there an overall GCF that all 4 of these terms have in common? No, I mean except for what? 1. And I don't bother with the 1 unless I have to. Now, 4 terms means we can factor by grouping, maybe. That means group the first pair and the second pair and look for little mini GCFs. So help me out here. Is there a mini GCF that goes into these 2?
X.
They have an X, but you can also do a little better.
X and X squared.
X squared, right. You can pull out 2 X's from each. What would be left over if you did that? How many?
X.
X.
Plus 2.
Yeah, and the 2 X's are gone. Brendan, take over. Plus, is there a little mini GCF here?
Yeah.
Like what?
2.
2, and then what's the leftovers?
2x plus 1.
Nice. Don't put a blank here. Some people say, oh, I pulled the 2 out, it's gone. We're dividing it out. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Question, is this good or bad? Check it for grouping. Is this gonna work? Like I would have called this good. What about this? This is also good. This is good. What about this? Take a flying game. No death penalty if you're wrong. What's that?
Yeah.
If it is, can you pull anything in front? The only time you can pull parentheses in front is if they're what? Does everyone remember? Yeah. If they're the same. They have to be identical. These are the same. Good news. These are this. Whoops. Sorry. These are the same. Good news. Whoops. See the problem? This fails because they're not the same. Which means this thing is prime. It does not factor. Every once in a while that happens. I think it happened 3 times on that day. Any others want to say? Yeah.
Well, I have a question.
Math
so-
or something else?
Math.
Okay, good. Yeah, go.
So, could you, I don't know if this is possible, but could you, group the first 2 and then group the outer 2?
Oh, group the inner and the outer?
Yeah.
The short answer is yes, you could. You can pretty much group them any pair you want. They don't all, it doesn't always work. There are some groupings that there's just nothing to pull out. Like we do 3x cubed plus 2. There's nothing, well, yeah, there would be nothing in common. This you could pull out an x. Here you wouldn't be able to pull out anything. But usually you put them in order and try the grouping. You can definitely try it. There are a couple other groupings that do work. Like if you flipped these 2 around, it would still work. If you flipped these 2 around, it would still work. But a bunch of the other ones wouldn't. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting question. Pretty much, if it factors by grouping, make sure they're in order, and that's guaranteed to work. If it doesn't factor by grouping, then nothing will save it. And then if it's not in order, do it at your own risk. You might miss something. Everybody okay? Questions? Going once? Twice? Yes. Sold to the people in the blazers. All right. Take out your notes, please. I want to talk a bit about
I didn't get this one.
How much did it cost us?
All your
Now it's just.
factoring by unfoiled. Unfoil. This is the 3rd method we've learned. This is actually going to be the 2nd on the list. I think by the end of today, I'm going to give you a list of all the 7 factoring methods, just to give you the names to know which one's coming next. Factor on FOIL. Quick review. I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 foiling problems. I want to make sure everybody's nice and comfortable foiling. That's just what we were doing earlier, last chapter. And then I want to see if you find a pattern. X plus 2 times x plus 3. Who thinks they can sink the teeth into that? From last chapter. Catherine, how would you do this? Like, what does FOIL stand for? First, outer, inner, last. So the first pair, you multiply the first pair, like the first from each, not x times 2. So the first from the first of this one and the first of this one. And then what does O stand for again? Outer. That means you go as far out as you can from the middle, and that's the outer pair, x times 3. The inner pair would be as far in as you go, and then the last is the last from each. So, Catherine, if you'd be so kind, give me the first, multiply the first pair for me. X squared. Plus what? Do the outer pair. Good. X times 3 is 3x. We do not write it as x3. Did anyone? It looks like something if you read it sloppily. Yeah, right.
Times 3. It would look like times.
It does look like times 3, although we don't use x's anymore. Right. It can sometimes look like, oh, okay.
X cubed.
It can sometimes look like x cubed. That's one of the reasons why we avoid it. Even though we no longer use x for multiply in algebra, you can still get fooled by thinking x3 is x cubed. So we always put the number in front. Catherine, take over again. What's the inner? 2x. Plus what? 6. Does anything go together? Yeah, 3x and 2x are like terms. Can you add them up for me? So x squared plus what? And then plus 7. There you go. Everybody good with that? Should be fairly comfy review, I hope. Try this. X plus 5. X plus 7. Eric, help me out with that. Multiply the first for me.
X squared.
Yeah, keep going.
7x.
7x plus
5x.
5x, good, and that's the inner. And then
35.
35. Anything go together?
7x and 5x.
All right. What's the final answer?
X squared
Yep.
plus 12x.
Yep. Correct.
Plus 35.
Good. Everybody see why it's 12x and not 12x squared? You only do squared when you're multiplying. Yeah. Right.
Well, wait a minute, you're adding, so would you not add the, what do we call it?
Exponents?
Yeah, exponent.
Okay. You do not add the exponents because exponents keep track of how many times you multiply, not how many times you add. Like x squared is x times x. X to the 5th is x times x times x times x times x. So the only time you change a power is when you multiply something extra onto it. What you might be thinking, what is x plus x plus x? That's 3x. That's a little different. So if you have a number in front, then yeah, you can. If you add more x's, you'll increase the number in front, but the power will never change. So 7x plus 5x is 12x's added together. Let me try another one. X plus 10. X plus 6. Rob, help me out with this one. I want to foil it.
Wait, what?
I'm going to foil these two. First, outer, inner, last. From last chapter.
X
Multiply.
squared,
X squared
6x,
plus 6x
plus 10x,
plus 10x
plus 60,
plus 60. Anything go together?
6x and 10x.
What does that make? What's the whole thing?
X squared plus 16x plus 60.
Plus 60. I'm just curious. Does anybody see a pattern here? Let me highlight something. 2 and 3, and we got this. look at the numbers. 5 and 7, and we got this. 10 and 6, and we got this. What's going on? Yeah.
You're like, for the middle one, you're adding the numbers, and then for the last one, you're like multiplying them.
You are correct. Unfoil, a quick way to unfoil, which by the way I'm going to have you doing right now. X plus 11, X plus 10. I want somebody to do that without doing all the work. By the way, what's the first term have to be? Trust. Definitely X squared. I want to use this trick. Add these up for me.
Me?
Yeah, just the numbers. 11 and 10.
21.
21. Make sure you stick an X on there. What would you write?
21.
Now multiply them. What's 11
Wait,
times
what?
10?
Multiply 11 times 10. 121.
Well, that's 11 times 11.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, when you multiply by 10, just add a 0.
Oh my goodness.
No, it's okay. I've been there. Go, here. 110.
Oh, I knew that.
Done. Now it's okay. We've all had brain freezes. Is that everybody right so far? Let's try a different one. X plus 6, X plus 4. Let me see. Isabella, what's the first term have to be?
X squared.
Good. Try the addition trick. It's going to be something X. 10X. Now multiply. Just the numbers. You're done. Does that make sense? Foiling, when you're just doing X times something, the middle number comes from when you add the numbers, and the last term comes from when you multiply the numbers. So they add up to be 21 and multiply to be 110 in this case. That's a real key. I had a professor once. He had a really cool British accent. I can't really do it very well, but I'll try. He told us, does everybody have this side for the notes? This thing? Okay. He had, I'm trying to get it right. So it said something to the effect of this. It was, I wasn't really paying attention until he started with a really cool accent, in which case, like, wow. I was paying attention to his accent and almost not paying attention to what he said. This, ladies and gentlemen, you may think you understand the mathematics. You may think you could do various complex and mind-boggling tricks of mathematical skill. Perhaps you may. However, in order to say that one has mastered mathematics, one must not only be able to do it forward, but, you tell me, backward. You ever hear the phrase, I know it forward and backward? It's a slang way of saying I know it really, really well. Yeah, question.
Is that the same professor that would jump on the table?
No, that was a high school teacher. He was amazing. Now this guy was really kind of fun, but yeah, I don't know. What was his name? Professor Williamson. There you go. Yeah. You don't know him, but what was that? Yeah, go for it. Now, yeah, go
It's
ahead.
on
Is that
YouTube.
the
It's
you
on
had like the
YouTube.
little stage and then was fell in it or whatever?
I thought that was Mr. Grant.
That was Mr. Grover.
Yeah, that was no, that was
Oh, yeah,
your.
that was a different teacher. Okay,
Right,
I'm
right.
just getting confused.
Sorry, I don't remember any of my teachers falling off the stage. Anyway, the question is, can you do this backwards? Go ahead and write this down. X squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 2 parentheses. Oh, yeah. Now, there's one thing, in other words, I want to unfoil this. I want to break it back apart. The very first thing, each of these is going to be a binomial, like 2 terms, 2 terms. Can anybody tell me what the first of each has to be? Go. X and X. Does that make sense? Because X squared, the only choice you could possibly have is X times X. Now the question is, what do I put here? It's gonna be x plus something, x plus something. But what do I put there? Is there a pattern to this? Rob? Go.
Oh, it's
And you know it?
answer, is there a pattern or?
See, if you have the answer, try it.
It's x plus 3 and x plus 5.
You got it. How do you get that?
X plus 5
X plus 5, x plus 3 is fine too. How do you get that?
well, they need to be numbers that can add up to 8 and they have to, oh my goodness, their product has to be 15.
Yes, good save. They have to add up to 8, then they have to multiply to be 15. That's how you do this. And by the way, 5 and 3 is perfectly okay. The commutative property says you can switch the parentheses around and you're fine. Does that make sense? Let's try another one. X squared plus 11x plus 10. What do you think? Jack, what does the first term have to be for each one? What has to go here and here? X, sorry. Well, yeah, x times x. In other words, we're splitting it back apart. So it's going to be plus something plus something. Any ideas what those two numbers might be? How do you find out? By the way, it's not the I don't know, let's find out. That's last chapter. Sure. You have to find two numbers that do what? Yeah, add up to what in this case? Add up to 11 and multiply by what? Do two numbers exist like that? Like what? 10 and 1. Very good.
That's so dumb.
We got it.
That's so annoying.
Some of them are, you should hear what it says about you. I'm kidding.
I hate this.
By the way, when I was on a farm growing up, we'd have sheep, and I remember saying one time, that's a really stupid looking sheep. And my dad looked at me and said, you should hear what it says about you. Burn. But I'm going to make this just a little bit weirder. It's the same pattern, the same principle, but can anybody tell me immediately what the first two terms have to be? Go. X and x. Correct. Does that make sense? It has to be x times x to make x squared. What am I looking for? What numbers? Like, what do they have to do? They have to something and they have to something. Right, what do you think?
The first 1x has to add and
Correct.
their
Negative 1x.
thing
And then-
has to make the, and if they use those two numbers, they have to multiply this -6.
Correct. I want two numbers that add up to -1 and multiply to be -6. I'll bet you there's at least one negative in here somewhere. Any suggestions? Yeah. -3, +2. I would do this. Add the opposite. Yeah, do you see how they worked? -3 plus 2 is -1. -3 times 2 is -6. Yeah. Now I'm going to crank this up to like, oh, what's the video game term when you crank it up to absolute insanely high level? God mode or something, or advanced, or yeah. But no, God mode is when you make your character invulnerable, which is cheating. But I've not. It's a long time. Hardcore. I can do that. So hold on. X squared plus. Hang on a second. Yeah. X squared plus 103x plus 300. Yep. Serious. It's not all that hard once you see it. You got it?
Okay.
Go ahead. First of all, what's the first term in each one now?
X.
X and x.
And then is it plus 103?
Yep. Next. Question, Rob.
Oh, I have the answer.
100 times 3 is 300. 100 plus 3 is 103. It works. two numbers that add up to 103 and multiply to be 300. You can do it with really, really big numbers too. Okay. Rob, question.
That was
Oh, I see.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What if you have, like, in the beginning when you're foiling, not when you're, whatever, but what if you had like x squared? How would you unfoil if you had that? to
Oh,
foil?
if there were an x squared
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Oh. That's going to come up a little later in the chapter. Yeah. Is it possible to do that? Yes. It looks a little more weird when that happens. Basically, you're going to have x to the fourth here when you're done, which is quite an advanced problem. We're going to cover that in class 66, I think. We're doing in class 63 for now. So in about 3 sections, remind me, there's going to be some big honking problems that we're going to be doing like that. But to be continued. Is it everybody catching up? So the negative ones are a little harder to see. I want to show you a technique if you get stuck. Let's just say we have x squared plus, 13x plus 36. This one, it's not too hard, but it's a little harder to see than some others. And I want to unfoil it. So I know it's x plus something, x plus something. By the way, if you add the opposite, you'll never have to write a subtraction sign in here ever, unless you want, for old time's sake, just because you miss subtraction so much. There are 12-step programs for that. I understand. I really miss my subtraction. You'll get over it, trust me. Go through the 5 steps of grieving and you'll be fine. So we're looking for two numbers that add up to 13x and multiply to be 36. Does anybody happen to know it off the top of their head? Yeah.
9 and 4.
9 and 4. Very good. Now pretend you don't know that. Pretend you're stuck in this and it's 13. Ew. Like 13 doesn't do much for me. Like, what goes into 13? Here's a quick question. You could try to use 13 as your hint. And think of it numbers that add up to 13. Or you could use the multiply and think of two numbers that multiply to be 36. I want to know which one would be easier and better as a general rule. Let me show you. If you tried to use 13, you could do 1x plus 12x, 2x plus 11x, 3x plus 10x. You see where I'm going? 4x plus 9x. By the way, lucky here. So, if you just missed it, you'd have, like, if I try to list all of them just so that I can eliminate all the ones, 5x and 4x, and then blah, 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 you missed a few. 0x plus 13x, negative 1x plus 14x, blah, 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 forever and ever, amen. There are loads, there are bucket loads, there are an infinite number of things you can add up to 13. And yeah, I know this one works, but that's getting super duper lucky. If I had put a negative here or something, you might need these pairs where one is positive, one is negative. You never know. So I would say this infinite list is probably going to take a huge amount of time. So 36, I'll get into your question in just a second. Watch this. 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, yeah. 4 times 9, 6 times 6. That's it. No, actually there are 5 more, I forgot. Negative 1 times negative 36. Negative 2 times negative 18. This is kind of tedious, but do you see it's limited? There are only 10 possibilities, ever. This has a bajillion of them. This has only 10. So if you get stuck and you need to get a list where you're to search, and circle, use the multiply one.
Isn't it 5x plus 8x?
Oh, yeah. Yes, you're right. What the heck was my brain doing? Thank you. That's really kind of scary. Anyway, so I would use the multiplication, and then all of a sudden look. By the way, a lot of people get excited. Ooh, 4, 9, 13. Is this the correct pair? They multiply to be positive 36. Everybody gets all excited about that. Is that the right pair? People are shaking their head, why not? What's wrong with it?
This Does it add up to -13?
It adds up to -13, which is not what we want. What we do want is this. Just put 4 here, 9 here, done. Questions? Give me 30 seconds. I printed your worksheet 15 minutes ago. Pray for the photocopier. It's been having a mental breakdown for a while.
Oh, my back hurts.
Ow, I'm just pulling my fingers. Who's that? Okay, that's
I should not be able to hear you from the other floor.
No idea.
That was loud.
To be fair,
Right. This, in its entirety, is due tomorrow. It's not that long. It's not as long as the other one. It's not the shortest thing I've ever given in my life.
Whoa.
A lot of this is instructions.
So this is a lot.
Oh, you get the wrong.
Yeah, it's no problem.
This is
Package.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I can't do all these.
This is 60.
how horrifying, yes, how, etc. This is the world's smallest violin. It's playing for you. I did, because that was 2 topics. There's only one.
Ow, my foot itches.
Now, 1 through 6 is review. Factor by GCF. 7 and 8, factor by grouping if possible. 9 through 14, just FOIL. That should be pretty fast. 15 through 20, FOIL, actually 20, yeah, 15 through 20, FOIL by the shortcut method. Wait, well, I erased it, but yeah. And then the last page, which is 21 through whatever that is, 20 through 36, on FOIL. I will warn you, there are a few that do not. I will even tell you how many do not. Everybody turn to the last page. You might want to jot this down. Let me scan through this. Hang on a second. There are 3 problems that are prime. On the last page, you might want to jot that down. There are 3 problems that are prime. 21 through 36, there are 3 of them that are prime. So expect, if you get more than 3 of them that are prime, go back and look. If you get less than 3 that are prime, go back and look. The last 5 minutes, go ahead and attack this. You may work in groups quietly, but do remember you gotta have your chairs back when you're done.
Therese, you took my seat again.
And, oh yes, people listening at home, you don't have to slog through this. This is my hand waving bye-bye. See ya. Did I hit the right button?
No.
Right. Can somebody hit it, please?